The entire media are filled with rage and anguish today. Not over Charlie's murder. I mean, let's be real. There are many who are not of my political ilk who were very broken up over Charlie's murder. I got calls from them, emails, texts. I know who they are. And honestly, obviously, I feel the exact same way. There are many on the left who did not feel the exact same way. There are many on the left who felt like, just another day in America, or it's just a gun violence act, or even, he did have some views I don't particularly like. With that said, the outpouring for Jimmy Kimmel is overwhelming. Overwhelming. So let's start from the things that we know about Jimmy Kimmel going off the air. Number one, Jimmy Kimmel's ratings were lower than dog bleep. Jimmy Kimmel had horrifyingly low ratings, like truly awful ratings. Remember, he was on network television, network TV. He was drawing in 2025, 1.6 million people viewing his show, being broadcast for free on network TV across the country. In the advertiser-coveted demographic of adults aged 25 to 54, the decline was even more significant. Okay, you ready for this? Adults aged 25 to 54. What were his views? In 2015, he had 1 million viewers in that age range. By 2025, he had, I kid you not, 261,000 people in that age range, 25 to 54, watching his show. My show is multiple times larger than Jimmy Kimmel's show by this metric. Like by a multiple. The ABC late night program showed a staggering 72% of the audience that helps pays the bill over the last decade. Compare that to Gutfeld over on Fox. In 2025, Gutfeld averaged 3.2 million total viewers, despite the fact that it's on a cable channel. It is not network. Okay, meanwhile, when it came to that 25 to 54 demographic, Gutfeld was averaging 381,000 people compared to 261,000 for Kimmel, meaning that Gutfeld was ahead of him by 46%. So it is quite possible, frankly, that a bunch of local affiliates were just done, that they were just done with Jimmy Kimmel. And when Jimmy Kimmel decided that he was going to go on air and heavily suggest that the shooter of Charlie Kirk was in fact a MAGA conservative, that they'd had it. Many of these station owners, remember the way that this works is that many of the local stations are not owned directly by ABC. They are owned by local television networks or by consortiums like Sinclair. So Sinclair Broadcasting happens to be conservative in its orientation politically. The ownership of Sinclair is conservative. There's been long-time rumors of Sinclair trying to launch its own form of Fox News, essentially, with its own lineup and all the rest. So it is perfectly plausible that Sinclair looked at what Jimmy Kimmel said and they said, you know what, we're done. We're not interested anymore. In fact, Sinclair said that his suspension by ABC was insufficient. What happened is the local affiliates went to ABC. They said, we don't want him on the air. And ABC responded by basically saying, well, if like half of our affiliates don't want you on the air, we're just going to suspend your show because what else are we going to do? We have to provide them some programming. Well, Sinclair announced it would yank Jimmy Kimmel Live from its stations until the host apologized directly to Charlie Kirk's family and also donated to TPUSA, which of course is not going to happen. The company vowed not to return Kimmel's show until formal discussions are held with ABC regarding the network's commitment to professionalism and accountability. Meanwhile, Nexstar, they were the biggest network to say that they were not interested, the network of affiliates, to say they weren't interested in Jimmy Kimmel. When this happened, apparently, Jimmy Kimmel had been planning to double down on his remarks. Like the reason he was pulled abruptly is because he was planning the night after that show on doing another monologue where he ripped into MAGA. According to the New York Post, late night host Jimmy Kimmel said he was unwilling to apologize for his remarks that blamed MAGA supporters for killing conservative activist Charlie Kirk. He said he was going to double down on attacking President Trump's backers before he was yanked from the air, according to new reports. Kimmel learned in a phone call from top Disney exec Dana Walden on Wednesday afternoon that his show was being removed indefinitely, according to Deadline. During that call, Kimmel reportedly refused to comply with calls from critics and owners of dozens of ABC affiliate stations for him to apologize. Kimmel felt his remarks required no apologies. Apparently, he also claimed he was planning to call out his critics for the latest attacks on him, all while trying to clarify his comments about Kirk's death. He says that his comments were mischaracterized. Disney felt that if Kimmel had doubled down on his MAGA comments, the company would have been forced to go beyond suspending him, and they would just have to fire him. It's still unclear if he's willing to return after this suspension at all. We'll get to more on this in a moment. First, you know that creepy feeling you get sometimes, like you're being watched while browsing online? Well, actually, that's not just a feeling, that's a reality. Every time you hop on the internet, your service provider can see pretty much everything you do. And get this, in the United States, they can legally sell your entire browsing history. So, you know that incognito browsing? It's not as private as you thought. Who would have thunk? Well, that's why I started using ExpressVPN. It's an amazing app that encrypts everything I do online and routes it through secure servers. Since I started using it, my internet provider can't see any of my browsing history, and that means they've got nothing to sell because they've got nothing on me. I use ExpressVPN all the time. I'm traveling all the time, hotels, airports, and that's free Wi-Fi, but it also means that, I'm open to hackers. I'm open to people who are prying into my data. I don't need that, and so I use ExpressVPN. And it's really, really easy. It hides my IP address, so those annoying data brokers can't build a profile about me to sell to advertisers. It's user-friendly. You don't have to be some sort of tech whiz to use it. They've made it so simple, even your kids could figure it out. All you got to do is tap one button to get protected. They've got apps for all your devices. It's rated #1 by CNET, The Verge, and other major tech reviewers. Find out how you can get 4 months free by scanning that QR code on screen, clicking the link in the description box below, or by heading on over to expressvpn.com/Ben Shapiro Show. Okay, so just from that fact pattern, it appears that the reason that Kimmel was taken off the air is because of organic outrage by viewers, which filtered up to affiliates, and those affiliates went to Disney and ABC, and they said, we are not interested in having Jimmy Kimmel on our air. And he responded by saying, I'm going to double down and attack your viewers. So, as a matter of sort of organic market blowback to crap programming, totally legit. And in fact, not unprecedented in any way, shape, or form. This has happened many times before. Many, many times before. It happened most prominently, actually, right after September 11th, when Bill Maher was suspended from the air, because Bill Maher made some comments about 9/11 that people didn't like. And then, of course, he found his new home over on HBO. What muddies the waters here are the words of the FCC chairman, Brendan Carr. Because Brendan Carr went on Benny Johnson and suggested, right before the affiliates apparently went to Disney and ABC, that there might be regulation, there might be punishment for affiliates for putting out the Jimmy Kimmel Show. And that raised the specter of government involvement. As I said yesterday, as an organic matter, Jimmy Kimmel should have been kicked off the air 10 years ago. He's an awful, awful late-night host. He decided not to be funny. He decided that instead of going for laughter, he was going to go for clapter. Meaning like, ah, ha, 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 yeah, I totally agree with what you're saying. He decided he was going to go for that a decade ago. And he should have been basically booted for being bad at his job a long time ago. So I shed no tears for Jimmy Kimmel. With that said, the FCC should not be in the business of telling local affiliates what they should and should not broadcast. So why don't we begin this discussion about what the FCC can and should do by finding out what exactly they have legal power to do. So I asked my sponsors over at Comet, a browser by Perplexity, what powers does the FCC have to regulate actual content over the airwaves? And according to Comet, the FCC's powers to regulate actual content over the airwaves are significantly limited by the First Amendment. It does have authority in certain areas, specifically regarding obscenity, indecency, and profanity, as well as public interest and disclosure requirements for broadcasters. The FCC is strictly limited in censoring broadcast material and cannot impose content-based restrictions that would curb specific viewpoints. There are some exemptions there. Public interest requirements are about broadcast licenses. They're awarded based on whether stations, quote, serve the public interest, convenience, and necessity, which is interpreted to include equal opportunities for political candidates, disclosure of sponsorship for political or commercial content, prohibition of lottery advertising, and rules against broadcast news distortion if it involves deliberate manipulation of significant facts. So the case that Brendan Carr would make is that basically Jimmy Kimmel was deliberately manipulating significant facts, and so the FCC can go after him. The problem, of course, is that the thing that we have learned here over and over and over again is that if a left-wing person is at the head of the FCC, they will simply accuse the right wing of deliberate manipulation of significant facts. And so what's good for the goose is good for the gander here, which is why the actual solution here would be to remove that capacity from the FCC. How about that? Can we get any support for that? Will Republicans, will Democrats, will anyone support that? Here's the beautiful thing about a government of enumerated powers. A government of enumerated powers is a government you don't have to fear as much, because if you're on the wrong side of the government still can't do anything to you because it has enumerated powers. So if you reduce the power of government in this area entirely, that seems to me a better solution than a race to the bottom where every prior norm gets broken. And I fully understand the mutually assured destruction argument. I've used it myself before. But I think that what we're getting into now is not mutually assured destruction, but assumption that the next go around they will destroy you, so you should just destroy them preemptively. And if that happens, then basically there's no reason for anybody to go weapons down. Well, that's all for now, folks. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment your thoughts down below. Be sure to check out all of the other great content on my channel. I'll see you here next time.